Close your eyes and enter the stillness. Let the noise of the day fall away. The distractions, the worries, the things left undone, let them rest now. In this moment, there is only quiet, and in that quiet, you are not alone. You are never alone. God is here. And even when he seems silent, he is speaking. Always. Maybe you've asked, "Where are you, God?" Maybe you've searched for signs, waited for answers, and only found silence. But silence doesn't mean absence. In fact, some of God's most powerful words come not as thunder or wind, but as a whisper in the stillness. You are always with me. It's not just a prayer, it's a truth, a foundation, something unshakable. You may not feel him, but he is there. You may not see him, but he surrounds you. In every breath, in every heartbeat, in every moment too quiet to notice, he is near. He is not the voice of panic. He is not the rush of anxiety. He does not yell over the world's chaos. He waits in the quiet, drawing you gently in. So breathe, listen, be still, because in the silence, he speaks love, and in the stillness, he reminds you, I am with you. I have never left. When life feels hollow, when your prayers echo back with no reply, it's easy to wonder if God has turned away. But he hasn't. He is not avoiding you. He is not angry at your silence. He understands it. Sometimes, silence is God's invitation, an invitation to come closer, to listen deeper, to grow more still so you can truly hear, not just his answers, but his presence. Think about how Jesus often withdrew from the crowds, from even his closest friends, to sit in silence with the Father. Those weren't wasted moments. They were sacred, intimate, needed. Maybe that's what God is doing in your life now, pulling you gently away from the noise so he can meet you where only he can, in the silence. It's not that he's withholding, it's that he's inviting. His silence isn't rejection. It's a space he's clearing for you to enter in, a quiet room where healing happens, where fear loses power, where grace is poured out, wordless and full. When everything else is loud, remember, God does some of his greatest work in quiet places. He is not far. He is not silent. He is speaking to you now, through the stillness. You may be tempted to fill the silence, with distractions, with voices, with answers of your own making. But resist that urge. Let the silence stretch a little longer. Let it soften your heart instead of harden it. This is where faith grows, not in the noise, not in the proof, but in the pause, in the waiting, in the trust that even when you feel nothing, God is still everything. The Psalms are filled with cries from hearts aching in silence. How long, O Lord? Why do you hide your face from me? You are not alone in this. Even the faithful have felt forgotten. But they weren't, and neither are you. God's voice may not always thunder. It may not part seas or shake the mountains. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it simply holds space. And that's enough. Don't mistake his quietness for absence. Don't interpret the delay as neglect. Sometimes the silence is God's gentle way of drawing you in, of preparing something deeper than you can yet understand. This silence is not the end of the conversation. It's a sacred pause in the middle of it. When everything feels still and your prayers seem unanswered, know this: you are not abandoned. You are being invited into deeper dependence, into a kind of trust that doesn't rely on immediate results or emotional reassurance. Faith that flourishes in silence is unshakable. It's not built on signs or feelings, but on the certainty of God's character, that he is good, faithful, near, even when he feels far. Think of Job sitting in ashes, surrounded by silence, yet refusing to curse God. Think of Jesus in the garden, sweating blood, and still surrendering to the Father's will. Silence did not mean God had turned away. It meant something greater was being formed. And what is being formed in you now? Patience, surrender, peace that passes understanding. These are not surface-level blessings. They are forged in quiet places, in the dark, in the wait. Keep your heart open. Keep your soul still. Don't rush to fill the silence with noise. Let it teach you. Let it shape you. Let it bring you closer to the God who is always speaking, even when He whispers. In the silence, you may start to notice things you couldn't see before. The noise of life fades, and the gentle presence of God becomes more real, not through thunder or earthquake, but in a whisper, just like He met Elijah. When you're no longer distracted by constant answers or emotions, you become more sensitive to His movement. You start recognizing His hand in the small things, in the sunlight filtering through your window, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the peace that quietly settles in your chest for no reason other than grace. This kind of seeing requires stillness. Silence becomes the canvas where God paints clarity. Not always in the form of explanations, but through a deep inner knowing that you are not alone. And sometimes that's all you need. Not a change in circumstance, not a booming revelation, just the reminder that He is here, with you, loving you, holding you steady while you wait. So do not resent the quiet. Embrace it as a sacred space where God ministers to your spirit beyond words, where His voice may not be loud, but it is faithful, always faithful. When you walk through a season where prayers seem unanswered and direction feels unclear, remember this: silence is not absence. God is not distant. He is drawing you deeper. Faith grows best not when everything is obvious, but when you trust, even when you can't trace Him. In these moments, trust becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a choice, a daily surrender to the truth that He is working, even when you don't understand how. God's silence isn't meant to punish. It's often how He prepares, preparing your heart to hear more clearly, preparing your spirit to lean on Him more deeply, preparing your character to match the calling He has placed on your life. And in that waiting, something powerful happens. Your roots grow deeper. You become anchored in Him, not because of what He gives, but because of who He is. The silence, then, becomes sacred. Not a void, but a womb. A place where hope is formed and faith is refined. A place where His presence, though unseen, holds you closer than ever. In the quiet places, you may begin to hear echoes of past moments, times when God carried you, even when you didn't recognize it. The silence reminds you of His track record. He's never failed you, not once. Think of the times you thought you wouldn't make it, yet here you are. Not because you were strong, but because He was faithful. That same faithfulness is still holding you now. The silence doesn't erase His promises. It magnifies them, because it forces you to hold on to them, even when you can't feel them. To declare God is good, not because life is easy, but because He is constant. And in that declaration, something shifts in your heart. The silence becomes less threatening and more like a shelter, a place where you meet God in new ways, where the absence of noise makes room for the presence of peace. So breathe deeply. Let go of the need to figure it all out. You don't need to see the full picture to trust the artist. You don't need to hear every answer to know He's still speaking in ways your soul understands. Sometimes, the silence teaches you more than words ever could. It shapes your patience. It purifies your motives. It humbles your pride. And it deepens your hunger for what only God can give. You start to realize that God's silence isn't passive. It's intentional. It creates a space where your faith can mature, not into something flashy or loud, but something rooted, unshakable. And in this sacred quiet, you may feel the whisper of His Spirit reminding you, I am here. I have not left. You are not alone. That whisper is more powerful than 1,000 loud answers. It doesn't always solve your problems, but it anchors your soul. So stay close. Keep your heart open. Keep returning to that place of stillness. Because even when nothing seems to be happening on the outside, God is doing deep work within you. One day the silence will break. The light will return. But until then, you will have discovered something priceless. How to rest in God, not just in His blessings, but in His presence alone. The beauty of walking with God is that you don't need to understand everything to trust Him. You don't need to have every question answered to stay close. His presence is enough, even when it's quiet. Especially when it's quiet. Because in that quiet, you're not just surviving, you're becoming. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't need the world's noise to feel valuable, who doesn't need constant confirmation to know you are loved, who isn't shaken by the unknown because you know who holds the future. God's silence is a canvas, and your faith is the brush. Every prayer whispered in the dark, every tear shed without answers, every time you chose trust over fear, it paints something eternal. And when the silence finally breaks, you'll look back and realize it wasn't empty after all. It was full of the invisible: grace, strength, character, depth. This is the gift of silence. It doesn't just test your faith, it transforms it. There is no moment you are unseen by God. Even in your most hidden pain, your silent disappointments, and the nights when sleep won't come, He is present. You may think you're forgotten. You may feel invisible. But the God who formed galaxies, who crafted the tiniest cell in your body, also watches over you. Intimately, tenderly, constantly. He knows every thought before you speak it, every fear before you admit it, every tear before it falls. Not one breath escapes you without His notice. Not one sigh goes unheard. The silence you're sitting in right now, it isn't empty. It's sacred. God is closer than your breath, holding you with a stillness that speaks louder than any word. Let your soul rest in this truth. You are never alone. Even in the ache, even when your prayers feel like they disappear into space, He's already at work. His voice is not always thunder. Sometimes it's the quiet courage rising in your chest, the whisper that says, keep going, the warmth in your heart when nothing else makes sense. That's Him. That's always been Him. So let today be a turning point. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you remembered who is with you in them. Let His peace guide your pace. Let His love anchor your doubts. Walk slowly, breathe deeply, and know, truly know, you are held by a God who never lets go.